Hi, and welcome again to the show. If you've ever wanted to sail a sailing ship around the world, you're in luck, because I'm going to introduce you to a young man who's done just that. Rigel Crockett, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leslie.
Good to have you here. Now, in your book, Fair Wind and Plenty of It, you tell the story of sailing on the Picton Castle, leaving out of Nova Scotia, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. First, describe this ship. It sounds like an unusual kind of sailing ship to me.
Well, she's unusual today, that's for sure. Though in her day, late 1800s, early 1900s, she was absolutely standard. This ship is unusual as a tall ship because she's not a replica of any particular ship. She's just a ship made to embody those characteristics that I guess represent kind of the highest level of square rig.
Square rigs, big, massive, square, or at least rectangular sails,
Yeah.
and a steel ship, though, a steel hull.
That's right. She's got a riveted steel hull. You can see her sometimes. She looks in an angled light. You can see the rivets standing out on her hull. She was built in 1928 to be powered by steam, by a 90 horsepower steam-powered engine. Because she was built to be powered by steam in this relatively low-powered engine, she has very clean lines, like a sailing ship. Mm-hmm. Those naval architects were borrowing sort of the hard-won lessons of sailing ship days when it had to be propelled by wind, of course. So that's why this ship was appropriate for conversion to sail.
Okay. Now, the sea is in your blood, as they say. Just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of, what kind of family you came from and how you got into sailing.
Well, I don't know if it's in my blood, but my dad was a wooden boat builder in Rose Bay, Nova Scotia. My mom was a sailmaker. She originally worked for Stevens and Sons on Second Peninsula, actually both did. Then Mom went on to work in Lunenburg as a sailmaker. I got into sailing traditional ships at about the age of 9. A man who Dad and Mom befriended when they were building his boat at Stevens returned to Lunenburg and invited me to sail on a passage on his ship, this beautiful topsail ketch. Went to Gas Bay, and after that, every summer I'd get on one of these ships, and by 12 I was working in a professional capacity as a cabin boy on this Gloucester fishing schooner with Captain Moreland, who is the man who dreamed up the Picton Castle and this whole around the world adventure travel.
And as I understand it, like some of you were working on the ship, you were hired to be there doing the jobs, but there's other people that are paying to be on there as well. But everybody has to work. Is that the deal?
That's the deal. Everyone is treated as crew. Now, there is leeway. If people want to be, people are allowed to contribute in whatever way they if they feel that they can contribute better by being an organizer or being a, I don't know, taking care of other stuff like office duties. Like so there was a woman on board who didn't like going aloft. She didn't like a lot of the grittier work with tar and chipping.
She doesn't like tar? Gee, I thought everybody liked tar.
Actually, I don't think she minded tar, but she certainly didn't like going aloft. And she managed to take care of some clerical duties on board. She was able to employ herself quite usefully. So there is leeway for that, but everyone works. Everyone is part of the crew. Okay, take me aloft.
I think I know what this means, and I'm assuming that you're a guy who liked to go aloft as opposed to doing the office work, right?
Right.
Take me out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and what's it like to be up there, and what are you doing?
Well, there's sort of two sort of experiences, and then everywhere in between. Most of this voyage being in the trade winds. The weather was moderate, sunny, day after day. Following wind, 15, 25 knots. And when you go aloft, okay, the ship is rolling quite a bit, of a long 7-second period. as you climb aloft, the rigging around you, the stuff in your peripheral vision.
These are all ropes.
That's right.
Yeah,
These
rope
vertical,
ladders and things.
tight wire ropes
Oh,
and horizontal ratlins strung between them that you walk and actually learn to run up as your rhythm improves. This all diminishes as you get to a yard, which is one of these horizontal spars. You step out onto it. You have to reach out over a void. You're holding on with your hand, and you have one foot on the rattlin, and then you reach out and grab a hold of the yard, about 3 feet away, and then you step out over space onto this foot rope and shinny yourself out. So you're really holding on with your hands and what you're standing on with this foot rope.
How high up might you be?
You could be as high as 90 feet above the water.
With the ocean all around, the sky all around, and the ship going this way and that way as you're up there.
Once
It's got to be kind of exciting.
Absolutely, and what was a real treat, and you'll notice this one of the first times you happen to go aloft, you'll see a seabird
Eyeball
circling.
to eyeball.
Yeah, or
below.
underneath,
Yeah.
or just above, off the coast of Australia. I had the experience. We had just caught a couple of tuna, and something we were doing, imitating some Pacific Islanders. We were eating their hearts at just,
The tuna hearts.
yes, as they're
Okay.
still beating. And
Wow.
I had some of this smell on my beard as I was aloft, and the seagulls could smell it. And they were clipping me with their wings, and
Wow.
it was amazing experience. That was a more blustery day, and on a more blustery day when you're running aloft, you get a sense of the angle of the ship and how those shrouds are more horizontal. It's almost as if you're running along something flat almost.
So it kind of skews your whole sense of where the earth is and where the sky is and which is up and which is down?
It is, I wouldn't say that happens so much, but you get this incredible sense of connectedness with the ship, with this machine. The wind's pressing you down, the shrouds are more taut, even
Yes.
more taut when they would be.
Right.
It really gives you a really heightens your sensations.
People don't fall off of this rigging?
People don't fall off, and maybe it's instinctive. I don't know.
You're holding on for dear
Nothing
life.
that could make you let go.
Okay, now that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. Once you figure out how to do this and you must have to overcome a certain amount of fears to be able to do that. Then there's, your book talks about the excitement and the thrill, and then there's the downside of it, and the thing that most people hear about, is seasickness, that if you're out on a ship like this, rolling from side to side, that many people tend to get seasick. Are you pretty good at it, or did you heave your guts a couple of times too?
Yeah, I heaved my guts twice on this voyage.
Well, that's not often.
No, I don't get seasick very much. I had learned that if you deny that seasickness exists, and if you keep yourself busy and keep your spirits up, you're not as likely to get seasick.
But in your book, I don't know if you remember the way you described it, but you described for me, what does it feel like to be seasick? Not everyone has had this wonderful sensation that
I can best relate it as a head full of worms or a diseased animal in your stomach, clawing its way out.
Yeah.
It really is an awful, painful feeling.
And it lasts for a while. Not that I have to drag everybody through all this, but I mean, it isn't just like you kind of heave once and then you feel, gee, that feels pretty good now, and you move on with life.
Well, it does help. It
Yeah.
does help, of course, but not everyone gets relief from that. And there were people who were seasick for weeks.
Ooh.
Oh, I just felt so bad for them.
And some of them paid good money for it to feel that way. What were some of your happiest moments, or give me a picture of one of your happiest times on board?
That's a good question. I would say that my happiest time on board was in Zanzibar. We had just broken a yard, which is fairly serious. we had sailed into Stonetown, which is this beautiful old town with layer upon layer of different societies that had come in and conquered and built, and not unusual to see a church and a mosque on the same street, and just all different layers of architecture. This coming in to this ancient port where dhows still sail, we had snapped a yard just hoisting it, and there in Stonetown we shaped a new yard, fabricated it, replaced all the gear, and I was lucky to be the person allowed to cross it.
Oh.
That means to install it out there at anchor. The ship was rolling, and in this ancient port, guiding this enormous spar up aloft.
And you were loving it. There was just the
Yeah,
the
I
atmosphere
mean,
of where you were at and the job you were doing and that whole combination for you.
yeah, these wonderful jobs, this wonderful work that you do on these ancient ships, is something that I really look forward to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the lessons of the voyage was that you don't actually do them very frequently. Most of the work is maintaining this ship, and it's a very tasks that aren't glorious. It's painting day after day,
A lot of painting, it
scrubbing
sounds
day
like,
after
in the
day,
book.
chipping. Yeah, absolutely. This ship is under very harsh conditions. Any ding in paint, dings happen all the time on a working ship, and then it gets hit by salt water, and then you have rust, and so to be able to cross a yard by hand, there was
That was a good one.
yeah, it was incredible.
Give me the real quick sort of geography. If you leave Halifax, you go to Bermuda, and then where?
Bermuda, of course, was an unplanned stop. We had a steering gear failure in the North Atlantic, our second attempt out. But we did end up going to Bermuda.
At the stop and get it fixed.
We actually fixed it underway, thanks to our engineer, who was incredible, welder and fabricator. We also, then our next stop was in the Western Caribbean, at the San Blas Islands, Panama, Galapagos Islands, Pitcairn Island, the home of the bounty mutineers, where their descendants still live today. This incredibly abundant island, incredibly abundant with food.
And then all the way across the Pacific to Australia, stopping at various islands, many of which I had never heard of before. And that started to get a little bit tempting there. I was thinking, gee, there are these places on Earth that I may never see.
That was the reward for a lot of people. The Pacific Island is so huge, but you can, once you get to the Marquesas, not spend any more than 3 days at sea, going from island to island, each island with its wonderfully distinct culture, great things to do, and very friendly people.
Okay, and we're going to take a pause in the voyage here for this little break, and then we'll come back with Rigel Crockett, and he'll take us on around the world.
This series is brought to you as a public service by Mount St. Vincent University.
We're back with Rigel Crockett here. Rigel, do flying fish actually jump out of the ocean and land on deck?
Yeah, they do. Sometimes they hit people on their way. Yeah, and it's considered good luck to actually take that first flying fish, cook it, and serve it to the captain, which is what we did.
Big question here. How did this whole voyage, all the way around the planet, how did it change you as an individual?
It changed me in a number of ways. One of the first things I realized was it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. I found
You thought it was going to be easy.
I thought it was going to be fun all the time, and that I was going to walk into it like a pro and and just sail through the experience. That's not what happened. I found it a challenge almost constantly. Some of the harder things were just being humble and learning that I had to put the ship before myself, that was the most important thing. That's kind of a lesson that I've carried on to my community, the communities that I live in. I also learned about the power of choice, that even in an environment like a ship, where you have very little control over your life, you can at least control how that life affects you and how you carry yourself. And that you can choose what kind of lifestyle you live. That it's perfectly valid to choose to be a professional seaman or traditional seaman in the modern day.
These are some pretty powerful lessons that you bring back, and obviously you learned a whole lot of things in a relatively short amount of time. How long was that whole voyage?
The voyage was 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 26 months on the ship in total, the first 8 being in Lunenburg, getting the ship ready to sail.
Right, so you really knew this vessel very well.
I did.
Yeah. Does life get a little bit dull back on land, or are you kind of happy to not have a rocking deck and a queasy stomach?
I don't find life gets dull. And I miss being on a ship. I miss the routine of life and how it can give a sense of definite purpose.
Yeah.
I don't miss. I like having more control over my life, you know, I like the time that I put into what I do to be something more of my own creation. On a ship, sometimes you feel you're putting your energies into someone else's dream.
Sure.
That can happen.
But it must feel good if you're out at sea and you come into an island somewhere in the South Pacific and you get to get off the ship and meet the people and walk around.
That is incredible, and one of the great things about doing it on a ship is that people identify you as, especially if you're going to one of these South Pacific ports where people don't have a lot of money and tend to value industry.
Right.
They see you as one of them more.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite island? It was out there in the Pacific somewhere.
My favorite island was a little place called Palmerston. Its highest point, called the mountain, is no higher than 20 feet.
Right. Yeah.
And it's inhabited by about 40 people, all the descendants of one English sailor and 3 Cook Island sisters. Their descendants live there today, an incredible independence, fishing on the reef, picking coconuts, growing what few crops will grow there in that sandy atoll.
Could you live on a place like that?
I could live on there for a while. I wouldn't want to be there permanently, I don't think.
At high tide, I suppose it gets kind of close quarters there too, right?
You can imagine, it is incredibly close quarters. Those 3 family groups are still distinct today, and I think they feel it too.
Right. Did you ever wish that you lived in like the 18th or the 19th century, that was your calling, to be sailing out of these Nova Scotia ports on ships built by Nova Scotia shipbuilders?
You know, that never occurred to me. I was always aware, at least, and ultimately happy with the idea that I was just a contemporary guy sailing in a ship made to look like it was from
Wow. Okay.
125 years ago.
When I read a lot of those different place names, like Rarotonga.
Rarotonga, yeah.
Never met anybody who's been there. What's distinct about Rarotonga, another South Pacific island, right?
Well, my favorite thing about Rarotonga is the music. The the people there have the most wonderful pride, and their music is so filled with joy, and it's so rootsy, and it's played largely on ukuleles, which is a great instrument, great underrated instrument, and yeah, it just buoys you up.
Carries
hearing
with
their
you.
music.
What were you reading? You're a literate guy. You must have had a certain collection of books there that were pretty darn important to you to be reading.
My two favorite books on that voyage were a book called The Captain by Jan de Hartog, a Dutch writer, and a book called Mount Analog by René Daumal. I didn't actually read a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself making things to pass the time. I found myself carving, making intricate beckets for my sea chest, which is ancient seaman's art.
What's a becket?
A becket is a handle, and it's, they're shaped like a horseshoe, and if done correctly, they take longer to make than a sea chest. And a sea chest is this incredibly intricate work in itself with hand-cut dovetail corners. I found that on this voyage, it was so long that I could keep myself sane by taking on projects that were long and difficult and breaking them down to step by step and just attacking that step with as much care as I could possibly muster.
This must, again, be one of those great kind of life skills that you had.
It's another lesson of the voyage.
Yeah. It was something different when you're going along the South Pacific and you're hitting all these different islands, and then let's say you get to Australia and you're more or less back in Western civilization. How do you go through that kind of culture shock?
Well, I dealt with it by walking around in the desert for 4 days.
Oh, a walkabout, huh?
Yeah, that's what I did. Though I did enjoy and appreciate the familiarity of being another Commonwealth nation. Yeah.
Right, but you wanted to get out of town pretty quick. The beer halls of Sydney or wherever weren't all that enticing to you.
Not after the first couple of days. Yeah.
Okay.
Every time I got to a place, and especially if I had a significant amount of time to do some travel over land, I would just go for it and just leave the ship, leave the town, and let fate take me.
So the adventure continues. We're going to take another very short break, and we'll be back with Rigel Crockett right after this.
If you'd like more information about this program or any of the courses we offer at a distance, call us or visit our website. We welcome your comments.
My guest today has been Rigel Crockett. He's gone around the world in sailing ship. Rigel, when you pulled back into dock in Lunenburg, pretty close to home, pretty close to where you were born, what did that feel like?
Well, it was one of the most emotional days of my life.
Did you cry?
I did. I may have. I don't know if
Did your parents
think
cry?
I did. My
Somebody
parents
must
did
have cried,
copiously. Yeah.
Okay.
The captain gave me the privilege of steering the ship back into Lunenburg, which was incredible for me. I had steered her out, and Lunenburg is my hometown, a place I'm really proud of, and proud of the role it played in getting this ship ready.
Sure.
And Lunenburg was also a port that I had sailed in a vessel there called the Eastern Star for a summer.
Right.
Just.
But it was good to be home.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rigel, thanks very much for coming on the show today. And thanks for watching. I'll see you again. Bye.